On today's show, join me for a trip through Croatia, the land of my family's heritage, for some wonderful food, wine, and friends. So stay with us.
Best of Taste. Travels with John Sarich. Delicious recipes, outstanding wines, and unique lifestyles. With your host, Chef John Sarich.
Dobro dan, and welcome to our show from the Dalmatian coast. You know, whether it's up in Trieste, where my dad's mom was born, or all the way down here in Primošten, where my mother was born, Croatians have always had an affinity to the sea and to the land. I mean, just like these vines, my grandfather originally planted these 100 years ago, and my cousin Jelko still picks the famous Babić grapes to make wine today. So, before we get to the wonderful foods of the Dalmatian coast, let's go meet Jelko and look around Primošten. It's been many years since I've had the opportunity to return to Croatia and visit some of my relatives, like my cousin Jelko. Jelko lives and works in Primošten, one of the most picturesque seaside towns on the Adriatic. The older portion of Primošten was an island, but it was joined to the mainland by a causeway over 5 centuries ago, allowing the townspeople easy access to their fields and vineyards. Primošten is where my mother was born and raised, and she has very fond memories of this Adriatic jewel. Jelko took me by the little house where my mother lived, and we even met my mother's cousin, who still lives next door in Old Primošten. The vineyards we saw around Primošten are typical of the Adriatic's Dalmatian coast, with the bushy, free-growing vines covering the rocky hillsides. My grandfather planted this particular vineyard in the early 1900s, and today these vines still produce the prized Babić grapes, which thrive in the unique terroir of the Dalmatian coast. Family winemaking throughout this region has been a tradition since Roman times. And today, even with the availability of quality locally produced wines, many people still take pride in making their own. My friends Leo and Johnny Kotlar inherited the tradition from their father, and they continue to produce great wines every year. I set aside one day on this trip for a visit to the seaside city of Trieste, Italy, which is at the northern tip of the Adriatic. My paternal grandmother was born here, so it was great to get a brief look at this historic port city. Croatia's proximity to Italy and the rest of Central Europe has led to over 2,000 years of political struggles for control of this vital region, and a wide variety of strong cultural influences as well. This is truly evident in the port city of Zadar, where the Roman Empire established a colony around 50 BC. Over the centuries, Zadar has withstood no less than 13 different ruling factions, including the Byzantine Empire, which formed the original province of Dalmatia in the early 7th century. Today, Zadar is still a vital port city and a vacation destination for tourists from around the world. It's also a great place to sample traditional Croatian food and wine, and for people like me, there's a great market in the heart of the walled city. We had no problem finding all the fresh local ingredients for a traditional Croatian family feast. After this break, I'll be joining my friend Leo and his family to help prepare this fantastic dinner, so stay tuned for more Best of Taste from beautiful Croatia. Well, we're here at Leo's house, and his brother John's house is right next door, and they are really my second family on the Dalmatian coast, and we're going to be doing some classic dishes. And some of the things that, maybe I should introduce everybody. It's Johnny is Leo's brother, Mira his wife, and Gabriela is one of his daughters, and we're all going to cook together, and that's kind of the whole thing with the Dalmatian, the Croatian family feeling, is everybody kind of works together. And sometimes it's a little crazy, so stay with us. If you hear a tour bus go by, it's because it's a road on the way to one of the best beaches on the Dalmatian coast in Zadar. So one of the things, though, I think that separates, and actually a number of things that separate Croatian cooking, is that men love to cook, and they love to, especially barbecue. And Johnny's specialty is the Dalmatian lamb, and this is just a classic dish from the Dalmatian coast. And the fire actually they use here, the live wood fire, is really relatively cool compared to what we think of in the United States. So it's a very slow process, usually about 3 hours for a lamb this size. The other classic dish is actually a roasted veal with the vegetables and potatoes cooked under clay. And that's what we're going to do, right? And you're going to do a little salad as well. So we're going to get going. Mira, we're talking about ingredients all the time. Mira, you want to go ahead and clean the onion, I guess, first? Maybe 3, 4? And Gabby, if you want to start tomatoes and salad. But really what separates it, of course, is the ingredients that grow in these areas. We talked about wine, and we'll get to that towards the end of the cooking segment here. But potatoes are from a friend of Leo's, Livio. And I tell you, these potatoes, the doggonest things, they almost have a tang to them. And it's really from the soil, just like the wine changes when it grows in different soils. And the vegetables here, just fantastic. But these potatoes really do have a whole different kind of a taste to them. They're wonderful. And of course, the tomatoes, really high acid, wonderful, tangy tomatoes as well. So they're just working away. This is great. I never get this kind of help. And then one thing I want to mention too, another thing I want to mention, I should say, is the olive oil here. You know, in Tuscany, the olive oil is prized for its acidity. It has a little bit of a zing to it. Certain parts of the Dalmatian coast, especially around Zadar, makes an olive oil that is so sweet. It has a lot less tang than the Italian counterpart, but you can just see the beautiful color in that. But it's a really sweet olive oil. Of course, it's used in all the dishes. And another item, Johnny, don't go away, I want to show one more thing. The Dalmatian sea salt. This is from Pog. And of course here they consider it the best sea salt in the world, and I've used it since I've been on vacation, and this stuff is absolutely wonderful. And it's just really farmed, I guess you could call it, or dredged out of the sea right up the coast from Zadar. So another local ingredient. So as you guys are working on that, I'm going to show you the veal. And I know you think probably on the coast a lot of seafood. We'll have a seafood dish show you a little bit later too, and we do eat a lot of fish here, but they also eat a lot of lamb and veal. And the kind of cuts, I love this because the cuts of these veal are really different. I mean, they're kind of like country cuts that we don't see at home a lot, and a lot of times you can't even get them. So I'm just going to cut these into large chunks. Put them aside here, just so they cook kind of evenly, but big chunks. This is part of the breast of veal, and it just makes a really succulent, moist roast. Now, when we get around to doing this here with a big clay pot, you can do this at home. A lot of the cooking stores have these big clay top and bottom roasting pans, if you will, and you soak them in water for overnight at least, and you can kind of create the same thing in your own oven. You don't have to do it in a big clay pot like this outside, but you can do it in a clay roasting pan. You can get that in a cooking shop. So cut this up a little bit. How you doing?
Fine.
Everybody all right?
Yeah.
Good. So nice big chunks.
Great salad.
It's going to be gorgeous.
Yeah.
And another thing about the Dalmatian cooking, or a Croatian style of eating and cooking, is that the main meal is in the middle of the day, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then later in the evening, usually a little bit lighter meal, unless you're entertaining. And tonight we've got relatives coming, we've got neighbors coming over, so we're going to have a lot of food. This is not what you typically have in an evening meal. It'd be more like you'd be having in the midday meal at 2 o'clock or so. I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm having Mira put some peppers, because generally, and you'll have this recipe on the website, it's very simple, and I'll explain why it's simple. Potatoes, onions. I'm going to clean a couple of whole cloves of garlic and throw in there as well. Generally, they don't put in the peppers, but the sweet peppers here, the red and yellows, are wonderful. So we're going to have Mira put some of those in there too in this big pan. And I'm just going to go ahead and clean up this garlic just a little bit. Cut a little bit of the tops off. At least 2 of these. Oh, maybe I'll do 3. Like that. One more. And Gabrielle's still doing the salad. But real simple.
The big salad.
Perfect. We got a lot of people coming.
Yeah. Around 16, 17.
Yeah. Be good. So we got the salad is onions, cucumbers. I'm going to put some tomatoes, pardon me, what I say? Tomatoes, cucumbers, and then some onions in it.
Yeah.
And then what we're going to do is put those peppers in. I'm going to season up this meat a little bit. We can put some more of those. Put a little Dalmatian salt in it. And don't be afraid to salt it a little bit heavier than you might think you need, because this slow roasting, it needs a little bit of that pepper. I'm gonna add a little more salt and pepper to the potatoes too. And then Dalmatian sage. I love that in this. So sprinkle some Dalmatian sage. Oh, here comes the wind. Come on. There we go. Like so. Okay, and then we're gonna put the meat right on there. Can I? Let's see.
Yeah.
I'll move this here. There we go. It's okay. There we go. A little solid. We'll hear you.
You're finished.
Sorry, my reach.
No, it's okay.
Pepper. And put the meat right in. Here. I'll hand it to you and you can put it in
It
there.
will be better to put oil or
Just stick it on in there. Yeah.
just
Just like that.
hands?
Yeah. Be a little bit more sage.
To najljepše što si u životu vidjela.
And then olive oil on top. I want to put another. Go ahead.
To za
Little
Leo,
bit on each
ovo za mene.
garlic
Đani,
clove.
neću, ti si bez toga ostao.
Oh, she thinks I put too much garlic in it?
No, she
It's
said
never-
this one's for Leo, this one is for her, so...
Oh, then we better get one for you.
Yeah.
Put one more in. So real simple dishes, and every time we've been Tuscany everywhere, and everybody always says about the simplicity of the food because it really just gets all the flavors of the items you put in, or you're not covering it up. So again, that's going to be our slow roasted dish for tonight. We've got the slow roasted lamb. We come back. I got another dish for an appetizer, and this time it comes from the sea. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Well, you notice we're missing one of my cooks, so Gabriella had to go to church and had a meeting, so it's just Mita and myself now, and Johnny in the back. And John's going to be taking the lamb off here pretty soon. It's almost done. Let it rest for a little while, and then we're going to put our veal dish under that clay pot. We'll show you that. But in the meantime, side dishes are real important, and salad. I love salads with the meal. That's what's kind of fun. We always serve everything together. So Mita, you're going to do the salad dressing, and I'm going to chop up just a little fresh basil out of the garden.
Što si slava večeras?
Little salt, and the olive oil. So again, you just can't reiterate enough how simple the food is from the Dalmatian coast. A little red wine vinegar, pepper, and the fresh basil. There we go. Something else I was watching Johnny do too, when he's cooking the lamb, right onto the coal, you take a handful of sea salt and toss it onto the hot coals, and it kind of, and it sort of gets the air within that barbecue kind of salty, and it adds flavor to the lamb. It's kind of a neat thing to see. So something a little bit different. Okay, and then of course green salad. We won't dress that now, but the green salad, we always have a green salad with dinner too. So that's going to be coming a little later. We'll dress that. Now, in the meantime, Mira, I'm going to do the lignite. This is what I told you I was going to do. This is an appetizer. And look at the size of these squid. Now, you might think something this big is going to be tough, and it is not. It's cooked relatively quickly, but at the same time over the coals that the lamb was cooked on. So the coals are kind of cooked down, but you still cook it rather quickly and serve it as an appetizer. And all I'm going to do with this, whack up a little garlic, like so. And I'll let these marinate just a tiny bit. But I put a little garlic in there, and a little salt, and a little lemon juice, and then that beautiful olive oil from the coast here, that sweet olive oil. And just let them marinate a little bit. Not too much. You could put a splash of wine in too if you wanted to. Just let them sit in there and kind of pick up a little bit of flavor of the garlic. And then grill them over, like I said, those coals that are cooked down. Just a regular old grill like this will work, or if you have your barbecue at home, that'll work well too. Just turn the heat down on them. And you can find squid this size at home, so don't hesitate just because they're big, but just don't cook them very long, and they'll be very tender. Great appetizer. And we talked about I talked about side dishes. Another one, Mira, that we always have is spinach, huh? And how do you cook that?
Što ti sad govoriti kako se kuha? Kad zapusti voda,
The water in there?
stavim
Uh-huh.
špinat i krumpir.
And these little tender
Da.
potatoes. So potatoes are
Little
cut
salt.
real thin, little salted, little salt, and it's cooked in water all together with the tender potatoes and the spinach together, and then drain it.
Onda
You drain it?
podignem
Yeah.
vodu, ocijedi se i sad čekam 10
Get rid of-
minuta
get
i
rid of
stavim
the water.
maslinovo ulje.
And then a little bit of olive oil, huh?
Da.
A little bit of olive oil on top. And it comes with a lot of the meals. It's a wonderful dish to have. So I want to talk about wine real quick here too, because wine kind of just goes with the meals. And everybody on the Dalmatian coast you're going to find makes homemade wine. It's just like every house this time of the year is making homemade wine. And Johnny and Leo's wine, it's not Sauvignon Blanc, but it reminds me a lot of Sauvignon Blanc. It has the same characteristics. And with the things like, especially the squid, it'd be dynamite with that. So Sauvignon Blanc, Chateau Saint Michel would be a great one. And my favorite, Horse Heaven Vineyard, would be wonderful with it. And the wine from my mom's hometown, take a look at this label. Now again, generally I'm saying everybody makes their homemade wine. It's hard to find a commercially produced wine here. One of the shows we talked about Plavac, which is the Croatian Zinfandel, that you can find at home. This Babic, the Babic grape, you will not find at home. And we've been drinking a fair amount of this on our vacation this week. And I'll tell you, to try to come up with a like wine from home, I was a little hard pressed because I don't know exactly what Babic variety is, but I'll tell you, it reminds me of Syrah a lot. So if you want to have that same flavor and you can't make it to the Dalmatian coast, try a bottle of Syrah, and I like the Columbia Crest Reserve Syrah especially well, but it really does have a Syrah character. This is going to kill Leo because he doesn't get to drink this yet, but wonderful with grilled meats, and with this lamb and that veal dish, it's going to be perfect. Well, speaking of the grilled meats, the lamb is done. Right, Johnny? The lamb is done? And Leo, can you help Johnny? Mira, thank you. Fala. And Leo and Johnny are going to pull this off of here now. But here's our veal dish that's going to go in. This is quite a job in itself. And that fire's gotten hot in there. There they go. Beautiful. Beautiful piece of meat. Now, this clay pot thing is real interesting. And as soon as John gets back in here to help me out doing this, I want to say it's a slow cook. It's really not. It's a seal cook in this clay lid. And we'll show you in just a second how Johnny does that. But you can do this at home if you do get that clay roasting pan. They're wonderful things to have. Put turkey in them, chicken in them, but we're going to be doing the veal and the vegetables all together here. And again, all this was if you can find a veal breast, a veal breast or a veal shoulder roast would work really well too. And cut it into big chunks of potatoes, whole garlic cloves. I put peppers, the sage, salt and pepper, and then just the olive oil. And then this is going to cook covered. Now here's this big clay lid that Johnny's going to bring down and move the coals out of the way. Now he gets his workout doing this. And then we'll put the meat right on the floor of the barbecue here. And then John's going to go ahead and set that big heavy clay pot right down on top of that. Get a handle on it. This thing is heavy and it's hot.
It's hot.
Hot. Got it okay? That goes right on top of that. And then what he's going to do is just completely cover that with the hot coals and let that sit about a half hour, then uncover it, mix it up a little bit, kind of turn the meat and the potatoes, get all the juices going, cover it again another half hour. So about an hour, and that's pretty high heat that's going on there now, especially with those coals on top. So again, we'll have the recipes for you. You can do that at home. And while you're gone, I'm going to run over and change for dinner. And then we're all going to get together and we'll go over all the dishes we had for this beautiful Dalmatian barbecue. So stay with us. We'll be right back. You all right?
All right.
Hot, huh? Well, I hope you enjoyed our quick trip to my family's hometown of Trieste, Primošten, and Zadar. I want to thank Leo's family, Johnny and Gabi and Mira, for helping out with this. It was great. And now the dishes from the Dalmatian coast, they're simple, they're flavorful. Start off a dinner like this with some prosciutto and cheese. That's always a great start. And of course, we talked about this veal dish, and this can be done at home in a clay pot. You can do it the same way that Johnny did out there, just don't do it quite as hot. Barbecued lamb. Not everybody's going to do a whole lamb. You can do a rack of lamb or leg of lamb on the grill. Would be great. Always serve salads like this nice fresh tomato salad, a fresh green salad, and even a little appetizer, a grilled squid. And that you can get at home too, and try that. And wines with it, you're not going to get Leo and Johnny's white wine, but at home try Chateau Saint Michel Horse Heaven Sauvignon Blanc. It has the same kind of flavor. It works great, especially with the seafood. And my mom's hometown of Primošten, the Babić. This is a wonderful wine. Can't really figure out what Babić is, but it really reminds me of Syrah. So try Columbia Crest Syrah. That'd be a great one. And of course, it's always a great wine with grilled meat anyway. So I hope you enjoyed our trip. Stay with us on next week on Best of Taste, and Lacro Noche.